Love campaigning and chatting with Roosevelt Islanders. I will tell you this: 2 years ago, when I ran for office, I was out on the island a lot, and we would on the campaign joke that Roosevelt Island was Patel country because we were there so often, and because people were very responsive, and I think feel neglected a bit by their current representation, rightfully so. And I think that is something we found across all the district, all across the district, except in the Upper East Side. And I think that's one of the big things about this district. We are in one of the most dynamic, diverse districts in America, and it ought to be represented by somebody who cares about all of it and who sort of represents the breadth of it and not just a narrow sliver. Anyway, I'm Suraj Patel. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm running for U.S. Congress here to be your next representative for all of New York 12, Manhattan, Roosevelt Island, Queens, Brooklyn, Lower East Side, East Village, the whole thing. And I spent today walking around this nice, beautiful day, my neighborhood and up to Gramercy, to sort of just enjoy the weather and talk to small business owners. Again, I come from a small business family. My family emigrated from India to the United States in the late 70s, late 60s, early 70s. And back then, the halls of Wall Street and the Ivy League were shut off to people like them. So like so many other immigrant families, we started a business. We ran a bodega. I lived above that bodega in a one-bedroom apartment with 13 of us sleeping sort of in a line on the floor. And, you know, back then when we were running the store, the New York Times would come to us on Sundays in separate sections: the front page, the business page, the sports page, etc. And if you woke up at 4:35 in the morning and put the paper together, you could sell it and make 10 or 15 extra cents because the paper wouldn't charge you as much if you did the work yourself. And so we do that on Sunday morning. And I gotta say, it is a testament to the power of the American dream, of education, of opportunity, of mobility, that the son of somebody who spent all those extra hours putting together a paper to make 10, 20 extra cents a piece, his name is written in print in that very same paper as a candidate for US Congress. That's why I'm running for office, because that promise, the promise of New York, education, opportunity, mobility, it has been broken for far too long. We live in the most unequal district in America. And for the 28 years that the Congresswoman has been our representative, it has become more and more unequal, more and more unrecognizable, more and more difficult for small businesses and for families to stay here, to stay in this district that we made and that we love. And so we need representation with vision. We need fighters. And the reason I brought up walking around today is because a lot of people ask me the same question. Where has our representative been for the last 8 weeks? Small businesses are reeling. Even before this happened, Main Street, Roosevelt Island, for example, it's too difficult to make rent. Only big commercial tenants can afford these rents. There are too many regulations and taxes for small businesses and folks in this city to survive. You shouldn't have to choose between living in a city that you love and having a family. It's too expensive to have a family in New York. Childcare costs more than college tuition in this city. And so we ran, when I started this campaign prior to coronavirus, on restoring that equality of opportunity for all New Yorkers of all income brackets and in all geographies, especially the ones that have been sort of neglected by a representative. And I'm going to be fighting like hell out on the streets, rolling up my sleeves every single day to make sure that we get a long and sustained support system for our families and our small businesses that are going to be decimated by this crisis. I'll be damned if we allow this crisis to accelerate what we already saw was happening in our city, which is the death of the character of our neighborhoods, the moving out of families because they can't afford it, and a city that we don't recognize. So I want to, with that, I'm happy to explain more about myself, my background, and things in questions. But because this is not a stump speech and this is not one of those types of, this is a neighborhood check-in, I'd rather hear more from y'all about your concerns, about what's going on, and then obviously explaining you know, anything you want to know about me, about the race, and my stances. But I'd like to turn this into what feels more like a community check-in and town hall, since I haven't been able to get up to the island since the coronavirus crisis basically has happened. But I want to echo one more thing. I have had conversations with folks on the island via Zoom. I know that testing capacity was a major problem. You did not have a place to get tested for coronavirus, even though you have so many medical folks working on the island. And it's something we tried to help remedy. I had a few conversations with people to get testing delivered there. I will say this, I had coronavirus myself 6 weeks ago. We took this very seriously. I believe in science. I'm not, and I believe in doctors. I live with one, in fact, who's an ER, my brother's an ER doctor here at Bellevue Hospital. And so we were talking about universal testing since before it was cool, before Congress, a month before Congress even thought about bringing it up, because we knew that was the only way to get us out of this perpetual cycle of reinfection and crisis. And so I do know that, you know, now testing is becoming more available, but I do want to say that it's something we try to work on to help get you guys testing on the island as well. Oh, I also see a chat. So a few things. I'll open it up to questions. You can unmute yourself and ask. You can ask me about anything about myself. Tell me about something you want to tell me about Roosevelt Island. Also, if you don't feel like muting yourself and asking anything, you can just, there's a chat box on the right of the Zoom, and we can just ask questions and do that there. Great.
Yeah, hi, Suraj. I wanted to ask a question, actually, that's following up on some of the chat questions. Yeah, my name is Tapan Parikh. Nice to see you running.
Hey, Tapan. Hey, thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, some of the questions are touching, you know, I was trying to get a lot of I'm active in a lot of things here in the community, and I was trying to get more people to join this call. And like, you know, one of the kind of refrains that I heard is that, can someone from Congress really do something for us? Because really REOC runs everything around here. You know, they run the roads and the public spaces and all of these areas. And so like, that's like a big question we have is like, we really feel like, I personally feel like we have no democratic representation on this island, because REOC is this state appointed agency that's really not accountable for any of the money they get or any of the service they provide or anything really. They've had all of our, like 80% of our public spaces on the island have been closed for like 6 weeks. You know, and it's just ridiculous. And you know, there's no recourse. They're like, whatever we say goes. There's no one to talk to. And so, yeah, you know, it's just, and then the other situation I wanted to highlight is that we live also here next door to Kohler Hospital. And the situation with Kohler Hospital has been just, you know, tragic to see, you know, just the neglect of people that are living there in a nursing facility, just creating a fake virtual hospital overnight and pretending that no one would notice when it's in the same physical building. And just, you know, people getting away with this when, and people are literally dying and not able to go outside over there. So, you know, I just feel like on Roosevelt Island in particular, there's just a lot of, I would say, apathy for this process, because we just don't feel like we have any agency, either with regards to the city or with the state or with REOC. We just take whatever shit all these people give us, and that's all we have here. And so, you know, I don't know what you have to say to that.
Yeah, Tapan, I think that one thing we're realizing is this is something that is really one of the things that animates me about, you know, running against an establishment incumbent Democrat, and that is that for so long you've been told that's not my problem, or that's a state thing, or that's a city thing. You know, in the context, a different context, I always talked about that, like there was the Close Rikers movement, there's the end incarceration stuff, and all the time your congressperson would say that's a state issue, that's a city issue. But what they were neglecting is that being a member of Congress isn't just being 1/435th of 1/2 of 1/3 of government. That's, you know, going to Congress and writing bills and passing bills and voting on them is the bare minimum requirements of the job. Utilizing your platform and your bully pulpit to advocate for and elevate issues and advocate for your constituents is a whole different thing that hasn't been exercised by your representative ever. And so, yes, REOC, is a state corporation, and Hudson as well, is a big landlord. And, for example, during this crisis, those two need to put together a deal that relieves Main Street businesses and nonprofits from rent obligations during the coronavirus crisis. And you may call Carolyn Maloney's office and they may say, well, that's a state and REOC and whatever issue. But you could call mine and we would be, advocating for you and using our bully pulpit and platform to elevate and, sort of bring this issue to the forefront. Does that make sense? I think advocating for somebody just because you don't
I
have
understand,
any,
like individual issue based. I think we've been through that with a lot of different people, but the really issue is the lack of democratic governance on the island. It's systemic, and it's we can't wait till 2068 to solve this. I teach at Cornell Tech. We are a major stakeholder on Roosevelt Island, and I tell my leadership all the time, this is an existential issue for our campus. We cannot be here with this inadequate public services and infrastructure. It's ruining the island. We can't exist here as a world-class research institute with these people next to us. We just cannot do it. So this really needs to be elevated beyond just like issue. The problem of REOC needs to be solved fundamentally.
Well, I hear you loud and clear. And again, there is one more thing here. I'm going to first off talk to my policy director and explore REOC reforms. We haven't really looked at this as an issue in the past. But from the standpoint of what your federal representative can do, one thing that bothers me again about the current incumbent and many folks in Washington is that they don't speak out of turn. They wait for poll tested sort of messaging and things to come on down from leadership, and then they start talking about them. We witnessed it happen just now with coronavirus testing. We're sitting here talking about testing, but until the Democrats and DNC and full messaging was able to do, like, sort of trickle and be given the permission to do it, they Maloney and everyone else silent on that. Well, similarly here, because folks are voted for by sort of old boys and girls club that is the Democratic machine, you're not going to see a lot of Carolyn Maloney calling out REOC and Andrew Cuomo and whatever to ruffle feathers like that. That would not be the case with me, Tapan. I do not owe any one of these folks any allegiance or comedy for when it comes to what's right and wrong here. And so I am happy to take a look at, and if you have any other plans, resources, ideas, I know you said close your REOC platform. We've called for in similar case instances to breaking up NYCHA by bringing federal dollars, but establishing some sort of federal oversight, because clearly the New York City Housing Authority has failed those people for 60, 70 years now. Similarly for the MTA. We said, you know what, we need federal dollars to help support the MTA, but at the same time, it cannot pay $1.6 billion a kilometer to build a line of subway that is 6 or 8 times more than the next closest one in the world, which is Paris. So I'm not afraid to sort of say, you know what, a lot of governance in New York State is broken and needs federal or audited oversight. And I sincerely believe that we really do need to shake up and reform a lot of stale bureaucracies and orgs here in New York. And so I'm very, very happy to take a look at what you have and explore this more. It sounds like the kind of fight we relish.
Sorry, could you tell us more about your platform in general? Because I remember reading about it and I remember liking it, but that was a while ago. So.
Yeah, Naomi, thank you. Good question. And I think I was hoping someone would ask because I skipped right over the whole concept. Look, so I'll tell you a bit about myself. So I mentioned to you guys that I grew up in a small business family. I got to go to university out in California. I went to Stanford, and then I came to New York City to go to law school. And in 2007, I was so enamored with a hopeful, optimistic, energetic campaign for president that I knew I had to join it. So I left law school, much to my parents' dismay, to join the Obama campaign as an organizer. And I knocked doors for them, and I was out in Colorado. And then all of a sudden, they asked me if I wanted to do advance. And I ended up getting to do the best job I ever had, which is to travel 7 days ahead of Barack Obama across the country to see hundreds of thousands of smiling faces, wait 5 and 6 hours in line to see, a new and better direction for the future. And I learned firsthand, I opened his doors. I cleaned up after he left. I carried his bags. And I got to see firsthand a masterclass in what a campaign can be if it's premised on hopefulness and optimism and ideas and unifying messaging. And that's what I want to bring to New York politics. It's so sorely needed. We have such a stale Democratic Party here. And I think we need new ideas here and in Washington. So I ended up becoming a business ethics professor at NYU. I ended up becoming an attorney. In 2010, I graduated. And I graduated in the worst economic depression or recession in a century. And my family's businesses faced 7 bankruptcies. And I ended up having to help, work for a couple of years without payroll to do right by all our employees and restructure and help grow our family's business back out. It's a lifetime of work. So I've been through this and I'm seeing it again. And this crisis calls for leaders who have been through that kind of struggle, who understand what real people are going through, not people who've been insulated from the effects of bad policy for 28 years. And so I'm running to bring bold change. And one big part of my platform, I don't take corporate PAC money. I don't think it's legitimate for a Democratic representative in a progressive district like New York's 12th district to take money from the very same companies she then has to regulate on Capitol Hill. I do not, I believe in our key centerpiece policy is called the Family Opportunity Guarantee. It is a suite of 5 policies that would halve child poverty in the first year alone. Everyone talks about inequality, and everyone talks about inequality and no one does it right. Everyone tries to either demonize success and the wealthy, or they say that some people are lazy and poor on their own. Well, neither of those things are correct. We all believe in this country in equality of opportunity. So we should put our money where our mouths are. Every family should be entitled to paid family and medical leave. Child care is a child's right. And therefore, we should provide a public option for child care. Child care it costs more than college education in most states. Like I said, in New York, it does too. Medicare for kids, making sure that every child is insured. Nationwide pre-K, we successfully implemented that here in New York. And then a universal child allowance, which would pay every family a direct cash transfer of $500 per child until the age of 5 per month, and $350 after that. This policy would replace the child tax credit, the earned income tax credit for dependent children, this whole alphabet soup of programs we have. And in doing so, it would give money directly to the pockets of families that need it most, universally, and it would have child poverty in New York in the first year alone, and eventually eradicate it in the country. Those are the kinds of bold transformational things we are fighting for. You are at the forefront as an island on climate change. If nowhere else, you are sitting in a tidal river, surrounded on both sides by a looming disaster. If coronavirus is a dress rehearsal, we are failing it epically. But climate change we know is coming and we have to prepare for it. And so that, or it's already come. So I know that, we're talking about fighting climate change and family opportunity guarantee. Look, a lot of these things aren't just at random. I got to grow up in a 3-generation household where I had the best childcare on earth because my grandmother raised me. And I got to have universal, or not universal, but I got to have pre-K in a sense because my parents and my grandmother forced me to learn multiplication before I got to kindergarten. So I understand what benefits and values there are to early childhood education and to having the ability and extra allowance to be able to sort of spend on tutoring and daycare and all those kinds of things. These are personal issues to us. And they're only more magnified after coronavirus. Saving our small businesses, making sure that workers have what they need to get through this crisis, including a monthly stimulus check until this whole thing is over. Those are the kinds of things we're fighting for. Now, I will also add, because I think we need to start thinking, given that it's 50 days out, in contrast to the incumbent, what are the big differences? I think it's important, even if they're not the number one issues that we talk about. Look, the Congresswoman takes more corporate PAC money than Mitt Romney, than most congressional Republicans, and then tries to regulate those same corporations. That's not progressive. Congresswoman spent 15 years being a leading anti-vaccine advocate on Capitol Hill. 9 anti-vaccine bills she authored. Now, for someone who has not authored any more than 1 or 2 pieces of substantive legislation in her entire 28-year congressional career, it's sad that 9 of them are anti-vaccine. She invited anti-vaccine advocates to Capitol Hill, rallied with them, and spoke with them. Those same folks are now, they hail her hearing in 2012 on autism and vaccines, which has been debunked, as a watershed moment. We can't have an anti-science representative in Congress during and after coronavirus crisis in the most educated district in America that leads in medicine and science. We can't have a congressperson in this district who voted for the Iraq War, voted against President Obama's Iran deal and Middle East peace, and sided with Trump and the Republicans. We can't have a congresswoman in this district who voted for a Border Fence Act in 2006 when only 20 other Democrats did vote with George W. Bush. Her record on so many issues is so dated that it's not even not progressive. It's just not democratic anymore. And I think people need to know, that record and that contrast with somebody who represents a new vision for New York, and for America. And that vision is inclusive, and it's about economic growth to stop inequality. And it's about justice around mass incarceration and immigration. And it is about tackling climate change. So those are the things that we bring to the table. And the Congresswoman's had 28 years to deliver on any one of those things and has failed to do so. So I don't think the burden anymore is on us to explain why we're better than the congressperson. I think it's time to turn the burden on her to explain why she deserves a 15th term. Oh, sorry, I'm not looking at the side. Oh, yeah. So there are no other questions so far. So please, someone let me know if you have anything else. Jim, we spoke yesterday. I'm looking at down the list now. Tapan, we connected on Twitter. If you all want to introduce yourselves, I'd love to just know you by first name. The rest of the folks.
Naomi.
Hi, Naomi. You nodded your head on mass incarceration.
Yes, definitely. I just participated in, basically it was a free them all, like a phone banking thing that we're doing every week with Jewish workers.
Oh, cool.
To get people out. And then I went to a virtual, it's great, the virtual world. So I went to a virtual press conference up at Fishkill at the prison up there. They were having like a graveside vigil for people that had died of COVID-19, which I feel pretty strongly about since my dad just died of it. And from he got it in the nursing home. So
well, I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, thanks. But I mean, what I'm saying is I can relate to their pain, even though I'm in a different situation. I don't have anybody in jail, but it seems to me that needs to be overhauled too, that whole system of mass incarceration.
I agree. I'm so sorry to hear that, Naomi. And this is such a difficult time, and I forget, that it's more difficult for many people compared with me and us. Also, yes, on mass incarceration, it's something that ever since I was in law school, obviously focused very hard on, and believe that we are just throwing away way too much future potential and promise and locking it up. In a country that incarcerates, 1 out of every 3 Black males by the time they're 30, it's a moral disgrace. And it's a waste, it's an economic waste as well. It's, I always say it's not that we're not spending money in Black communities. We're just spending it on the wrong things. And you're spending it on over surveillance, over policing, over incarcerating, and legal fees, when you could be spending that same money on economic opportunity and investments and education. Robert Kennedy used to say education without economic opportunity means nothing. And it's true. You can't just tell people go to school if there's no veritable good job afterwards. They won't do it. There's no point. So you've got to pair these things together. Anyone else? I'll tell you guys about some of the stuff we're doing in the meanwhile. So I'm very excited. We have this incredible grassroots team. We're 100% people powered and funded by people like you. And we're powered by volunteers. Like Naomi, I know you said you did phone banking. We'd love to have you do some phone banking with us. This election will be won on the phones and I used to say on the streets and in the avenues. I don't know if we're really going to be able to ever do that again, unfortunately, but I would love to. This is a unique election. Everyone, first off, I'm putting into this type, but one thing I need you to do as soon as we hang up is to go to the website I just put up and request your absentee ballot. You are going to be allowed to vote by mail in this election. You can click this link and go request your ballot. And then I want you to do number 2. Take that link and put it on every WhatsApp group and Facebook and chat that you can for your friends and your family. And you send them that too. Because we can't win if you don't vote. And you can't vote if you don't get a ballot. So first things first, we're going to educate folks across this city and across this district to get a ballot and then vote for me. Vote for change. And then what we're going to do is utilize the support and help of folks like you, if you can, spare some time to get on the phones and get on text and start contacting people. I was sad last election. We tied on Roosevelt Island 50-50 exactly with Congresswoman Maloney. We cannot let that happen again. That we are going to rely on folks like you to let people know that you can have a fighter in Congress, request your ballots, and make the change. I think it's time. So that's one thing. Every night over the last 6 weeks, our volunteers have been calling folks across the district, checking in on them and how they're doing. We made 100,000 check-in calls to people in the district. We delivered dozens of drops of supplies like toilet paper, milk, water at a moment's notice to people all across this district. We've helped people with their unemployment, with their small business loans. We have taken over where the congressperson has disappeared. And we want to be that support system for you for good. I personally have delivered hundreds of meals to seniors and others in need through city meals. I've been out every single week, at least once a week doing that. I've talked to dozens of small businesses and tried to help support them and elevate their issues. And we've delivered myself. I went last week to do $10,000 of food and supplies deliveries to Elmhurst Hospital, which is very hard hit, in a partnership with House of Spices, and to a food pantry near Queensbridge. And then this week, I've partnered with Feed Our Hospitals, which is a group that we helped found as a campaign that connects local restaurants and businesses to hospitals to provide nutritious, full balanced meals to our frontline heroes, some of whom have no time to eat in this current chaos. And all those things we did because we believe that these moments call for leaders who roll up their sleeves and get out there in the face of a crisis. There are 2 types of people out there in the world. There are people who run towards the fire, and there are people who run away from one. And I think you deserve a representative that runs towards the fire. And that's what we're going to do throughout this thing and lead by example. But we do need help. We need your help. If you have time to spare to thank you, Tapan. And and we will reach out to you directly. I know it's up in his league. And I'm going to close up soon too. We would love your help on, Emmett can help wrangle people to phone bank and text bank with us. And then of course, you know, one piece of this campaign that has taken a hit is that we are people powered. We are powered by people like you. We do not take corporate money. Last quarter, Congresswoman Maloney took $180,000 from corporations in the middle of the coronavirus crisis, many of whom have turned around and taken government aid, including airlines. We don't have that luxury, or our ethics won't allow us to do that. What we are facing is, however, you know, a difficulty getting contributions from grassroots supporters who are hurting. 30 million people are unemployed in this country. We're fighting for them, but we can't also ask for money from them at the same time. So if you are in a financial situation that is good, we would really encourage you, I would encourage you personally to contribute to our campaign. I know there are lots of great causes right now, but we cannot forget the long term. We cannot forget what got us here, and we cannot forget that we're going to need a sustained long-term fighting representative for you in the future. So if you have anything you can spare, we would love for you to do that. I'm going to also put that link up on the chat. And then again, word of mouth is going to help us win this race. So if you tell folks about both those things and our volunteer opportunities, we would love your support. I'm still waiting. Obviously, if you have any other questions or ideas or comments, please, I'm not leaving yet. But if we don't, then I don't want to keep you for no reason either.
Quick question. Can you be endorsed by other politicians out there, or are they all part of the machine and they don't want to touch you?
So the New York ones are definitely part of the machine. I don't harbor or hold my breath on any of those endorsements. However, we are in talks with several folks. You know, I will say this, most of the time, it's not a big focus of ours because endorsements don't really tend to move voters too much. And unless they can come with significant notoriety in some manner, like if Barack Obama endorsed me, that'd be fantastic, but he's not going to do that. But on the other hand, we are, you know, seeking endorsements from folks from things that do move voters. And for example, we were endorsed by the Roosevelt Island Daily, their first newspaper or news blog endorsement. And I think that matters. I think it shows that we particularly care. But we're working on it. We are talking to a few folks that we might be able to get, you know, and really just, it's just not a huge focus, but we are trying.
What about like Jumani or AOC?
Yeah, so that's an example of when I say we're talking to folks. We are, we're not anywhere near the end of that yet, but I think depending on how the race continues to shake out, you know, we'll see.
Okay. I had a publication. I'll talk to Emmett about how a publication can endorse you.
Oh, thank you. That'd be fantastic.
Thanks, Jim. That would be great.
Cool. Does anybody else have anything? Awesome. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking some time and joining this call, our town hall. Like I said, Roosevelt Island is always going to be one of our favorite parts of this district to be in and campaign in. I just want to also, I know, you know, remind everyone, I have one more thing in my notes. Free meal distribution at PSIS 217. There's free grab and go available Monday to Friday from 7:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Meal hubs will also operate for children and families from 7:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. So know that 645 Main Street, you obviously know where the school is. We all know where the school is. It's also where you vote. So if you do go vote in person, you know, I know that I'll try to stop by that place on election day for sure. But yes, please request your ballot today. Please make sure you tell your friends and family and everyone to request their ballot today. And let's go get some new representation.
Quick question on the request your ballot thing that you want us to share on social media. Is there any paragraph blurb on why people should do that we could include, or just paste the link?
Yeah, I mean, you can say, so if you open the link, it kind of has, it's a little explainer on how to vote by mail. But Emmett can provide you with a blurb. Yeah,
Okay.
Emmett will provide you with a blurb.
I'm going to send a follow-up email to everyone with the
great.
link and some information about volunteering. And I'll also include a little blurb about that you can just copy and paste onto social media, or a message to your family and neighbors.
Cool.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Naomi.
Thank you, everyone.
Sorry for your loss. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Bye. Hopefully soon in person.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, thanks.